We're going to have a look at the centrepiece of the Tuesday, which is, of course, the Champion Hurdle. 2 miles of brilliant speed, and Buveur D'Air is bidding to make it 3 in a row. We should have the betting up, 8 days out as we are now. These are the prices with Betfair, and 2 mares in the first 3 in the betting. Apple's Jade, who is joint favourite with Buveur D'Air, and Laurina, very, very interesting indeed. 4-1 she is. Sharjah for Willie Mullins, 12-1. Last year's runner-up Melon, also for Willie Mullins, 14s. Verdana Blue, 16s. Brain Power, 20s. Espoir d'Orlan is 20s. Super Sunday, 25s. 33s bar those. Let's get straight into the action. And we're going to go back 12 months, and the performance second time around, Buveur D'Air, who was brilliant back in 2017 when switched back from fences. At this day, Martin, he wasn't quite as scintillating. You can see there Melon, the eventual runner-up on the inside. Nicky Henderson in the last couple of weeks has been quick to say, though, that the horse was in close proximity to We Have a Dream, who was sick. He won in spite of the circumstances this day.
Yeah, perhaps. I mean, one thing's for sure is that he will, in my opinion, have to be a fair bit better this year than he was last year. You look at this form, and Melon, obviously, Melon has disappointed this season completely and just hasn't been the same horse. But even Mick Jazz, pick him up in the orange cap there, just travelling in behind them. Yeah. He was a horse at 25-1. I think that price with good reason going into the race, and he was beaten little more than 3 lengths. So I don't think it was the best Champion Hurdle that's been run. I think Buveur D'Air was probably better the year before, and I'm not sure that we've got concrete evidence from this season that he's necessarily any better than this piece of form right now. You go back to the Fighting Fifth and he beat Sam Crow. Okay, at the time it was very impressive, but we know that Sam Crow hasn't gone on to do what some of us thought that he would do subsequently. Then he's been rolled over and beaten at a short price in the Christmas Hurdle, and then you can't really make much of the Sandown form. So I think there's a little bit, although he's a dual Champion Hurdle winner, I think he's kind of comes into the race, in my mind, with a little bit to prove. And like I say, giving the weight away to 2 very good mares, I think he's going to have to be better this season than what he was 12 months ago. Yeah,
we'll come on to them. Dave Neverson, in terms of this year, I know there's rain forecast in the next week or so, but that was officially heavy. That there'd been a real deluge in the days and weeks before. Of course, we'd had the Beast from the East 2 weeks before last year. Do you see Buveur D'Air as the likeliest winner of this?
No. I see Apple's Jade as the likeliest winner. The thing that I can say, I echo all of Martin's feelings about both that race and subsequently. He hasn't looked like he did the year before. The only caveat, I think, this year's a better race. Apple's Jade has got one way of doing it. He's going to get a pace, so it will actually be run to suit Buveur D'Air better, because I think it's hard for him to show absolute brilliance against substandard opposition, which he usually faces. But I do believe that the £7 that Apple's Jade gets will prove decisive, and he won't get past her. That's just my take on the race. And Laurina isn't good enough.
We will see Apple's Jade and Laurina and co. But another mare who dethroned Buveur D'Air in the Christmas Hurdle was, of course, the stablemate Verdana Blue. Dave Yates, it wasn't one we were expecting. This was his first defeat, Buveur D'Air, in terms of the overall profile, since Altior and Min beat him in the 2016 Supreme Novices Hurdle. See the horse making a little bit of a mistake on the occasion. Thereafter, though, he's come out and won the race that traditionally is his and Nicky Henderson's, that Contenders Hurdle.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, it's disappointing that Verdana Blue managed to beat Buveur D'Air here. He's the reigning champion hurdler. But I think she's a rattling good mare under speed conditions, speed favouring conditions. I'm not saying necessarily she's a champion hurdle horse. And the BHA directive for watering to take place to turn the ground on the soft side of good definitely works against her. I mean, I know they do that every year, but if, say, the champion hurdle will run on dry ground that are dried out on the Friday, I think she would be a definite each-way shout. But with Buveur D'Air, I mean, I take Martin's point that he's done nothing this year in terms of form, has he, to show that he's better than last year. He laughed at Sam Crow at Newcastle, and then that race at Sandown didn't really tell us an awful lot. But I still think he's the clubhouse leader here. I think that Laurina has got an awful lot to prove. We'll come on to her in a bit as well, and there are certainly, if you can pick holes in Buveur D'Air, you can certainly pick holes in Apple's Jade's 16-length romp at Leopardstown in the RS Champion.
Just in terms of context, I know he was beaten there, but from a news angle, say, 2 decades ago when Isterbrack. I know Isterbrack was he was the pride of Ireland. He was the most wonderful horse, and I love watching the replays back. But in terms of the buzz of a horse going for a third straight champion hurdle, I imagine this doesn't match up with what Isterbrack was doing 20 years ago.
Probably not, but Isterbrack was an outstanding horse who competed in a fairly humdrum era. You know, think of the podium horses behind Isterbrack. They're not household names, even in their own household.
French Holly was in there.
Right. Okay. Yeah, I think. I'm not sure that it doesn't compare with that. You mentioned last year, which we should emphasise, that we have a dream. I was privileged to be at Seven Barrows at 6 o'clock on Champion Hurdle morning last year, and We Have a Dream had gone from his box. I think he'd gone to isolation because he had a bug, and you know, staff at Seven Barrows were very concerned that Buveur D'Air might have picked that up, and Nicky Henderson subsequently has said that's the reason that that things got a bit desperate with Melon.
Nev, we're going to get straight on to Apple's Jade because you've already teed her up nicely. She is your selection. Let's just run through the case of her again. She's on the front end there, and for a 7-year-old mare, she's won 10 Grade 1s. She received £7 from the boys. She's won her 4 this year over 3 different trips by a combined 73 lengths. The levels she has shown this year are far and away the best she has been. I suppose hearing words like that are just adding fuel to the fire for you.
Well, you've made my case. I'm interested in what Yates has said about picking holes in this performance, because I thought it was staggering. The only thing I can possibly say is that she sometimes jumps a tiny bit to the right. I don't think it's, which obviously at Cheltenham may well be an issue, but I don't know where the hole is in this performance. I thought it was absolutely excellent.
5 letters, and it's a yellow fruit.
Oh, well, yes, Melon is a horse who knows when it's fancied. He knew it wasn't fancied this time, so it ran like a drain.
Well, whether he knew he was fancied or not, he's still run like a drain, hasn't he?
Yeah. She's still beating Super Sunday.
Yeah, true.
Who's a seriously good horse.
The one thing you would say about this is that
she beat Super Sunday by 20 lengths at Fairyhouse.
Yeah, but the time comparison with the handicap on the card over the same distance reflects very well on her. You know, right. she ran it in a much quicker time. She went faster from the off. She came home slightly slower, admittedly, having set a strong gallop. But you can't argue with the time performance that day at Leopardstown.
I'm not dismissing her. I'm just saying that I prefer Buveur D'Air. I think that she's an admirable mare. I think it's a very sporting decision to go for this race as well.
Which this
was her first run over 2 miles since she was beaten by Irving in the Fighting Fifth a couple of years ago, when one of Harry Cobden's first career wins.
Since then, she's won oodles of Grade 1s. She can't help it if there isn't the depth of opposition, a bit like Buveur D'Air. She can only do it. But to do it, the talk of Leopardstown that morning was, will she be able to do it over a minimum trip?
Yeah.
And she did it in staggeringly impressive style.
Martin, we've got to talk about her festival. She's been to the festival. It was a great triumph hurdle. She was second to Ivanovic Gorbatov. He would be the one standout who hasn't come out of the race and excelled thereafter. The likes of Clandazobo was in there, so too Footpad. She won the mares 2 years ago. She had that brace of Willie Mullins mares alongside her. Last year she was turned over in the race at odds on, but she was found to be in season. I understand as well, just hearing that they seem to have that under control now. Should we just treat the Apple's Jade of this year? If you just treat her in isolation this year, does she go there the one to beat?
I think the Leopardstown performance was probably even not allowing for the £7 that she receives. I think it was single-handedly probably the best 2-mile performance of the season over hurdles so far. So on that performance, I think she is the horse to beat. Yes. You touch on the Cheltenham record. That's something that just niggles me slightly, because I do think that even in winning the mares, she was certainly well below what she's running to this season. Okay. Then she was disappointing in the race last year when she was turned over, and obviously she was beaten. She ran very well, but she was beaten in a triumph hurdle. So whether it's the track that brings out the absolute optimum in her would be a slight concern.
She was second to Ivanovic Gorbatov, wasn't she, in the triumph? She then comes out and wins by the length of Bedford High Street at Aintree. That winning form in the mares of 2 years ago is a million miles away from what's needed for an average.
That is my point. I mean, ultimately, I think that whilst it's been built up as a match between the first two in many quarters, I think there are other big players in the race in what may not be sort of the. Again, it might not prove to be the hottest of champion hurdles.
There is Laurina as well, who wins, who continues to win, who was the wide margin, 18-length winner of the Dawn Run last year. We've seen her twice this season. We saw her come over and win a match, which was barely a match at Sandown, and of course this was her in the Quevega Mares Hurdle last time at Punchestown back in February. She wins, she continues to win. Will she win in 8 days' time, Dave Nevison?
Look, on racing TV, we're only just getting used to seeing these Irish stars, and I'd barely heard of the horses that she beat here. She did it in good style, made all the running. She's in a different league. I think that this proves that she's an extremely good mare in a division that almost by definition, was it 95% of jumpers are geldings and the rest of them mares. It's just not as competitive and not as strong. So you get horses like Quevega, you get horses like Apple's Jade and this one, and they're going to do a lot of winning. But I don't think that was the equivalent of beating Super Sunday 20 lengths.
Martin, what's the position you take with her?
Well, my quote after she won last year's Mares Hurdle, I was on track and I said that by a country mile she was the best 2-mile novice that I'd seen last season. And I think ultimately I still believe in that comment that I made that day. Now, she hasn't necessarily had the opportunity to go on and prove it, but I think if any horse is going to achieve big ratings, it's got to have the opportunity to do it, and this is her opportunity to show us how good she is. And there's just something about her. You can't sort of nail your colours to a piece of form and a performance that says she's a 160 mare as of yet. But she's still very lightly raced. She's only a 6-year-old, and I think ultimately it was the impression that I got from her at Cheltenham last season, where she dealt with a very strongly run race so easily. As soon as an inch of rain was let out by Paul Townend coming down the hill, she just rapidly made it up on some good mares. You know, there were 130, 140 mares in behind her that day. She left them for dead. She was still full of running at the line. I think personally she's very good, and I do think that we'll see a big improvement in her rating next week. Whether that's good enough to win, we'll wait and see, but I do think we'll see a big improvement in her.
I just wanted to say, can we just talk about the squad, all of the Willie Mullins last decade or so at the festival? They've won 9 of the 11 mares races, with Quevega, the majority of them. They've won all 3 runnings of the Dawn Run. When they brought Annie Power to a champion hurdle, she won. So just in terms of the knowledge and the expectation of what they've got with a mare, they obviously know what's required to bring a mare and bring a mare to win at the festival.
Well, the same question would be aimed at an Annie Power if you go back, you know, when at the time when she was beating up mares all of the time and she was doing it impressively and people didn't quite know how good she is. The same questions were sort of aimed at her, if you like, as what they are being at Laurina this time. Same with Quevega as well. She used to beat the mares, but then she went to Punchestown the first time she went there. Would she be good enough? Well, yes, she was.
Yep.
And like I say, right. I think ultimately all I'd say is I think we will see a big improvement from Laurina in terms of the rating that she runs to. And I think personally that she will be very competitive, especially with the rain forecast that we've got.
OK, quickly, we're done with the champion hurdle. The selection for you, Apple's Jade, Dave?
I like Buveur D'Air.
It would be a marginal call on Laurina. I wouldn't have a strong betting view. But
so all 3 of the top 3 in the market represented. Dave, Apple's Jade,
We're pretty shocked in that race then, aren't we?
Yeah, well, just a bit. I'd have a few quid each way on Sharjah, personally.